Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being well-informed, packed with surprising facts and insights. Today, we're diving deep into a work that shaped millions. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Now, this isn't just about, getting more done or optimizing your calendar. It's really about a radical shift in how we approach those deep, persistent frustrations in life. You know the feeling, right? Professional success, but maybe your personal life is struggling. Or diets that just fizzle out, feeling overwhelmed despite all the time management apps. Or maybe a relationship that just feels flat. The author asks a really vital question. Can quick fixes actually solve these kinds of challenges?
Well, exactly. And the author suggests these familiar struggles aren't superficial at all. They're symptoms of something much deeper, and that really requires a fundamental shift in perception. Our mission in this deep dive is to truly explore this inside-out approach, starting with a powerful idea. How we see the world, well, it shapes everything else.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit. The author kicks things off with a very personal story about his son. His son was really struggling academically, socially, even athletically. And despite the parents' best efforts, positive mental attitude techniques, constant encouragement, even trying to shield him from others' laughter, nothing seemed to work.
And that's the core question, isn't it? Why were their efforts so ineffective? The author had this realization. Their deepest perception of their son was that he was basically inadequate. So it didn't really matter how much they acted supportive. That underlying belief was constantly communicating, you're not capable, you have to be protected.
Wow. And it was this struggle that led to a really profound aha moment for the author about perceptions and paradigms.
Think of a paradigm as your personal map, your theory, your understanding of how something works. So if you're trying to navigate to a specific address in downtown Chicago, right? But you've mistakenly been given a map of Detroit. Well, you can try all the positive thinking you want, run faster, be super organized. You're just going to get to the wrong place or stay lost, maybe even faster. The fundamental problem isn't your effort or your attitude, it's having the wrong map to begin with.
Right. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the author's extensive research into 200 years of success literature, it unveiled this fascinating shift. For the first 150 years, roughly up to post-World War I, success was overwhelmingly rooted in what he calls the character ethic. This embraced principles like integrity, humility, patience, justice, the deep stuff. Think Benjamin Franklin's autobiography. He deliberately worked on cultivating these virtues. Okay, and here's where it gets really eye-opening. After World War I, the focus dramatically shifted. It moved to the personality ethic. Success became about public image, attitudes, and, superficial techniques for human interaction. We're talking about maxims like, your attitude determines your altitude, or advice that, honestly, sometimes bordered on manipulative, like faking interest in someone's hobbies to gain favor, or even just adopting a power look.
Now, this raises a crucial point, right? Are these secondary traits like personality or communication skills not useful? Of course they are. They're beneficial, even essential sometimes. But the author argues they are secondary, not primary. True, permanent success, especially in long-term relationships, it demands primary greatness, deep integrity, and fundamental character strength. It reminds me of that quote, "What you are shouts so loudly in my ears that I cannot hear what you say."
That's powerful. It's almost like trying to cram for a harvest on a farm. You can't just wish for a crop, right? You to plant in the spring, put in the consistent effort day after day, follow the natural process. There really are no shortcuts to genuine growth or to building real trust. And this sets the stage perfectly for the inside-out approach. It's about starting with yourself, your fundamental paradigms, your character, your motives. Private victories, as he says, truly do precede public victories. So with that foundation laid, let's explore how these deep principles translate into daily life. We'll start with what the author calls the private victories. These are the habits of self-mastery. Our first one is habit 1, be proactive. The core idea here hinges on something truly unique to us as humans. Self-awareness. It's a remarkable ability to step back and actually think about our own thought process, our moods, our feelings. This self-awareness, he argues, creates a crucial gap between any stimulus and our response. And in that gap lies our freedom to choose how we react.
Yeah, and our basic nature, he contends, is to act, not merely be acted upon. You'll often hear reactive people say things like, I have to do this, or I can't because... But proactive people, empowered by that gap you mentioned, consciously say, I choose to, or I will. And this choice can radically transform a situation. For instance, if you feel you don't love your spouse anymore, a reactive person might just, Accept that feeling as reality, done deal. But a proactive person understands that love is a verb, it's something you do through sacrifice, listening, appreciating. The feeling then often becomes a natural outcome, a fruit of that action.
That's a huge shift. It moves everything from a passive feeling to an active choice. And it leads directly to this concept of the circle of concern versus the circle of influence.
Mm.
Your circle of concern is, well, everything you worry about, maybe the national debt or other people's weaknesses, things you can't directly control. But your circle of influence contains the things you can actually do something about your own behavior, your methods of influencing others.
Exactly. And proactive people instinctively focus their time and energy on their circle of influence. And what's fascinating is the more they do this, the more their circle of influence actually expands. Think of Gandhi. He quietly expanded his influence from field laborers to eventually impacting millions. Not through holding political office initially, but through moral persuasion and unwavering principles. It's not about being pushy. It's about being deeply value-driven and, frankly, smart about where you put your energy.
Makes sense. And it's also about shifting from the haves, if only I had a better boss, to the bees, I can be more resourceful.
Yeah.
The story of Joseph from the Old Testament is a great example. He focused on being excellent and trustworthy, even while he was in slavery or in prison. That's a radical shift in focus.
And this brings up an important point about mistakes, too. The proactive approach isn't to just sit there and dwell on them. It's to acknowledge them immediately, correct them if possible, and most importantly, learn from them. That process can literally transform a failure into a success.
Okay, moving on to habit 2. Begin with the end in mind. This habit really builds on the self-awareness of habit 1. It's all about mental creation first. Think of it like a carpenter's rule. Measure twice, cut once. You meticulously create a blueprint for a house, envisioning every detail before you ever pick up a hammer or saw.
Exactly. And this, for the author, is the essence of leadership. It's about clarifying your vision and values, asking, what do we really want to accomplish? Defining the right jungle, so to speak. Only then do you move to management, which is efficiently cutting through that jungle. We really need to ask those ultimate questions of life, what is truly important to me, before we start setting goals or even managing our time efficiently. Otherwise, we might just be efficiently climbing the wrong ladder altogether.
So true. And what's really transformative here is that this habit empowers you to re-script yourself. Instead of just living out scripts handed to you by your parents or society or your past conditioning, you actively use your imagination and your conscience to write your own personal mission statement.
Yeah, a personal mission statement functions like a personal constitution. It's designed to be fundamentally changeless, anchored in correct principles, and it becomes the consistent standard for all your decisions. It gives you a kind of changeless core that truly helps you navigate our rapidly changing world. And it's not just about writing words down either. It involves using your right brain capacity, visualization, affirmation, like a parent visualizing a calm, principles-based response before dealing with a misbehaving child. That helps you embody that script daily. It also involves identifying your key roles in life, maybe individual, parent, professional, community member, and setting goals within each to maintain genuine balance.
Okay, so if habit 1 says you're the programmer and habit 2 says write the program, then habit 3, put first things first. This is all about running the program, right?
So that's
Physical creation. It's the day in, day out discipline of living out those values.
Exactly. This is where we delve into effective self-management. And the author introduces a brilliant tool, the time management matrix. It's based on 2 factors. Urgent, meaning it requires immediate attention, it presses on us, and important, meaning it contributes to your mission, your values, your high priority goals.
And most people, let's be honest, spend the majority of their time in quadrant 1. That's urgent and important, dealing with crises, deadlines, pressing problems, firefighting mode. Or they get stuck in quadrant 3. That's urgent but not important, handling interruptions, other people's priorities, lots of emails maybe. And many also escape to quadrant 3. Not urgent and not important, just busy work, trivialities, maybe too much scrolling.
Right. But the heart, the absolute core of truly effective personal management lies in quadrant 2. Quadrant 2 is not urgent, but important. This is where you find relationship building, long-range planning, preventive maintenance, exercise, writing that mission statement we just discussed. All those things we know we should do, but rarely get around to because they aren't screaming for our immediate attention. It's really about focusing on opportunities and preventing problems rather than just reacting to them.
That sounds so simple, but wow, I think many of us live our lives in quadrant high, constantly putting out fires. The real revelation here is that the activities that truly transform our lives are almost never urgent. They're just deeply important. So how do we actually do this? How do we live in quadrant two?
Well, it takes proactivity. You have to be proactive enough to prioritize what truly matters before it becomes a crisis. And to really move into quadrant two, you absolutely have to learn to say no to other activities, even some urgent-seeming ones in quadrant three or time wasters in four. It requires having a bigger yes burning inside you, and that yes comes directly from your personal mission, from habit two. The author talks about a fourth generation of time management that moves beyond just daily to-do lists. It focuses on weekly organizing, anchored in principles, focused on relationships, and driven by results. It's not about prioritizing what's on your schedule, it's about scheduling your priorities. Big difference.
Scheduling your priorities. I like that. And a key part of this you mentioned is stewardship delegation. Can you expand on that?
Sure, stewardship delegation focuses on the results you want, rather than micromanaging the methods someone uses to get there. It involves establishing clear, upfront, mutual understanding of five things: the desired results, the guidelines or boundaries, the available resources, the standards of accountability, and the consequences, both good and bad. This approach is a game changer for empowering others and building genuine trust. It frees you up and builds capability in them.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So with that personal mastery as our solid foundation habits 1, 2, and 3, we now transition into public victory. This is about success in working effectively with other people. And I love that quote you mentioned earlier. You can't talk your way out of problems you behave yourself into. The most important ingredient in any relationship really is what we are deep down.
Absolutely. And to help us understand relationships, the author uses such a powerful, relatable metaphor: the emotional bank account. Think of it like a financial bank account, but for trust in a relationship. Deposits are things like courtesy, kindness, honesty, keeping commitments, clarifying expectations, being loyal to people even when they aren't present. These build trust. Withdrawals are things like disrespect, betrayal, ignoring promises, being duplicitous. They deplete the trust balance. When the trust balance is high, communication is easy, effortless, almost instantaneous. When it's low, well, you're absolutely walking on minefields, as he puts it. Every interaction is tense.
That visual is so clear. Okay, and it leads us straight into the habits of interdependence, starting with habit 4. Think win-win. Now, this isn't just some technique or, negotiation trick. It's presented as a fundamental philosophy of human interaction. It's based on seeking mutual benefit. Viewing life as a cooperative arena, not purely a competitive one. The goal is always to find what the author calls the third alternative, something better than just my way or your way.
Yes, and this principle is absolutely crucial because, frankly, many of us are deeply scripted in win-lose thinking from a very young age. Think about it. Comparisons at home. Why can't you be more like your sibling? Conditional love, competitive grading in school, most sports, even the adversarial nature of our legal system. This deeply ingrained win-lose or lose-win mindset makes truly thinking win-win quite challenging sometimes.
It sounds ideal, win-win, but it feels like it could be incredibly tough to actually implement consistently. He says it requires 3 core character traits to make it work. First, integrity. That's the cornerstone, right? Built through habits 1, 2, and 3. It's knowing what constitutes a genuine win for you based on your values, and then having the self-mastery to keep commitments to yourself and others. Second, maturity. He defines this as that delicate balance between courage, the willingness to express your convictions and feelings and consideration, genuine empathy and respect for others' feelings and viewpoints. Being, as he says, nice and tough. And third, the abundance mentality. This is the paradigm, the belief that genuinely sees there's plenty for everybody. Which is such a stark contrast to the scarcity mentality, which views life as a limited pie. If someone else gets a big piece, that means less for me. That makes it incredibly hard to share credit or be genuinely happy for someone else's success.
Spot on. And this concept of win-win is vital for organizations too, not just individuals. The author gives a fantastic example of a company president who said he wanted cooperation between his managers, but then he set up a sales contest where only one manager could win a trip to Bermuda. The system was rewarding win-lose. The insight here is profound. If you put good people into bad systems, systems that reward competition when you need cooperation, you will get bad results. Win-win requires aligning the systems, the compensation, the training, the communication to reinforce that cooperative spirit.
Okay, that's a critical point about systems. Next up is habit 5. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. The author calls this the single most important principle in all of interpersonal relations. That's a big claim.
It is a big claim, but think about it. Think about going to an optometrist. You wouldn't trust them if they just glanced at you and handed you a pair of glasses saying, "Here, try these, they worked for me."
Right.
You expect a diagnosis before a prescription. Similarly, in human interaction, we so often rush to prescribe. We evaluate, you shouldn't feel that way. We probe, why did you do that? We advise, here's what you should do. We interpret what you really mean is, all before we truly understand the other person's perspective. This is what he calls autobiographical listening, listening only through the lens of our own frame of reference, filtering everything through our experiences and motives.
All right, we jump to solutions based on our world, not theirs. And what's truly transformative about this habit is the alternative, empathic listening.
Hmm.
It means listening with deep intent to understand, not just waiting for your turn to talk, not planning your rebuttal. It's about trying to see the world as they see it, to feel things as they feel them. It gives the other person psychological air, that fundamental human need to feel understood, affirmed, and truly validated before they can be open to influence or solutions.
Exactly. And it feels risky initially. It really does, because when you listen empathically, you truly open yourself up to being influenced. You make yourself vulnerable. But that inner security developed through habits 1, 2, and 3 provides the bedrock, the strength to do this. Once you genuinely understand someone's perspective, then you can effectively work on the second part, seeking to be understood. And this is where you can powerfully use what the ancient Greeks call ethos, which is your personal credibility, your integrity, pathos, your empathy, your connection to their feelings, and logos, the logic and reasoning behind your point. But the sequence is crucial. Understand first.
That makes so much sense. The story he tells about the real estate agent listening so deeply to that hostile banking institution's negotiating team, it's just so powerful. By genuinely understanding their needs and concerns first, he completely transformed the dynamic. They went from adversarial to basically saying, we trust you, just let us know the price and we'll sign. That's the power of understanding, which flows perfectly into habit 6. Synergize. This is often described as the crowning achievement of all the previous habits. Synergy, at its simplest, means the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, like 1 + 1 = 3, or 10 or 100. It's all about creative cooperation.
Yeah, synergy is literally everywhere in nature. You see two plants growing close together, and their roots cooperate to improve the soil so they both grow better than they would alone. Or think about two pieces of wood together, they can hold significantly more weight than the sum of what they could hold individually. In human terms, synergy means valuing differences, differences in perspective, experience, opinion. It means consciously building on strengths and compensating for weaknesses to create entirely new, previously unimagined alternatives and solutions.
So when we talk about synergistic communication, what does that actually look like or feel like in practice for us? How do we do synergy?
It means being genuinely open-minded and open-hearted to new possibilities. It requires enormous personal security, back to habits 1, 2, 3 again, because you have to be willing to let go of your original position. And it requires a real spirit of adventure, because you often don't know exactly what the outcome will be when you start. But you trust that by truly combining diverse perspectives respectfully, the end result will be significantly better than anything you could have achieved alone. Conversely, negative synergy happens all the time too. That's when insecure people try to clone others, demanding conformity, or when they operate from that win-lose or scarcity mentality. Sameness isn't unity. True unity comes from complementarity. And the key to achieving that interpersonal synergy with others, he argues, is first achieving intrapersonal synergy being integrated within yourself, meaning your logical left brain and your intuitive creative right brain are working together in harmony.
That internal synergy makes achieving external synergy possible. Got it. Okay, the final habit, habit 7, sharpen the saw. This one is about continuous, balanced self-renewal. It's interesting because this habit isn't just one of the 7. It actually circles back and embodies all the others. It creates what the author calls an upward spiral of growth, making all the other habits possible on an ongoing basis.
Exactly. It involves regularly renewing yourself in 4 key dimensions. He suggests ideally spending at least an hour a day on this, every day if possible. First, the physical dimension. Exercise, good nutrition, stress management, taking care of your body. This reinforces habit 1, your proactivity, giving you the physical capacity to act. Second, the spiritual dimension. This could be value clarification, studying inspiring literature, prayer, meditation, spending time in nature, whatever connects you to your core principles and purpose. This reinforces habit 2, your personal leadership, living out of your imagination and conscience. Third, the mental dimension. Things like reading broadly, Writing, maybe journaling or thoughtful letters, organizing, planning, continuous learning. This reinforces habit 3, your personal management, helping you prioritize and stay sharp. And fourth, the social emotional dimension. This dimension is renewed primarily through successfully living habits 4, 5, and 6 in our interactions with others. It's about building intrinsic security through integrity, service, and developing healthy interdependent relationships.
That balance seems so crucial. I remember when I first read about this thinking how easy it is to neglect one area. You get busy, maybe you skip exercise or stop reading, and it really does impact the others, doesn't it? It's just as true for individuals as it is for organizations. Like a company focused only on the economic bottom line, for instance, often ends up with negative internal dynamics, low trust, poor morale.
Absolutely, it's all interconnected. This brings up a really profound implication of habit 7. How do we influence others positively through our own renewal? We are, whether we realize it or not, part of the social mirror for the people around us. Our words, our actions, our attitudes reflect back to them an image of themselves. We can choose to reflect back a clear, undistorted vision of their potential. We can affirm their proactive nature, their capacity to choose. This means choosing to be a transition person, someone who consciously stops negative patterns or scripts from being passed down through generations. Like parents who were abused choosing not to abuse their own children, or simply choosing to see the best in someone, scripting them in positive ways, like the story of the knight who saw the common street woman as the noble Dulcinea and, through his belief, helped her become that.
That's a powerful responsibility, being part of that social mirror. The very essence of this whole book, really, as the author shares in a powerful personal story near the end, it seems to boil down to recognizing that gap, that crucial space between stimulus and response. It's in that precise gap that our ultimate human freedom, our power to choose our response based on principles, lies. And that realization, when it's cultivated through self-awareness and consistent practice of these habits, is truly where deep, lasting transformation begins. So after this deep dive into the 7 habits, what's the ultimate takeaway for you, our listener? It seems clear that true effectiveness, the kind that lasts, isn't found in quick-fix techniques or surface-level adjustments. It's really about an inside-out transformation. It means changing your fundamental paradigms, building that primary greatness of character first, and then extending that integrity to create profoundly interdependent, synergistic relationships.
Yeah, this path is definitely not a shortcut. It's presented as a continuous upward spiral of learning, commitment, and action, nurtured through that balanced renewal of your physical, spiritual, mental, and social emotional dimensions. But the liberating truth is, you are not your habits. You are the programmer. You have the power to replace old, self-defeating patterns with new ones, new habits that lead to effectiveness, happiness, and trust-based relationships.
And as the author so powerfully emphasizes, no one can persuade another to change. Each of us guards a gate of change that can only be opened from the inside. We cannot open the gate of another, either by argument or by emotional appeal.
So the profound challenge really is left with each of us to open our own gate of change. What one principle or habit from this deep dive resonates most with you right now? What might you commit to exploring or applying, even in a small way, in your life this week?